When the anesthesiologist looked down at me, smiled softly, and told me to slowly count backward from 10, I was terrified that I might die on that operating table. I was terrified that my heart would suddenly stop while my spine was open, and that I would vanish into nothingness without ever knowing what true peace felt like. But when I opened my eyes 6 hours later to a pitch-black, silent ICU room, surrounded only by the cold, rhythmic beep of medical monitors, I realized something far worse. Dying would have hurt less than waking up to the realization that to the people who shared my blood, I was completely invisible. My name is Maya Lin, and on the night I fought for my life, my family was busy raising a glass to my sister's bright future. They thought I would just swallow the pain like I always did. They thought I would stay quiet, cry in the dark, and accept whatever scraps of attention they felt like throwing my way. They were completely wrong. If you have ever given your absolute all to people who treated you like a convenient option, you know the quiet ache that lives in your chest. But today I want to tell you about the moment that ache turned into cold, absolute clarity. This is the story of how being forgotten became the greatest advantage I ever had. Growing up in our household, my older sister Chloe was the golden child. She was radiant, outspoken, and possessed a natural talent for turning every single room into her personal stage. People gravitated toward her, showered her with compliments, and excused every selfish thing she ever did because she was charming. I, on the other hand, was the fixer. I was the quiet one, the steady engine that kept the family machine running behind the scenes while everyone else took the credit. When my father's boutique architectural firm faced total bankruptcy 5 years ago, it was not Chloe who stayed up until 3 in the morning rebalancing accounts and negotiating with angry vendors. It was me. I was 24 years old, sacrificing my weekends, my social life, my youth, and my sleep just to protect his legacy. When my mother decided to launch her high-end catering business, I drafted the legal contracts, managed the staff schedules, and built her online brand from scratch. Did I ever receive a public thank you? Did I ever get a seat of honor at the dinner table? Never. My mother would casually pat my shoulder in front of guests and say that Maya was just so practical, and that I simply didn't need the spotlight like Chloe did. They slowly convinced me that being useful was the exact same thing as being loved. I told myself that actions spoke louder than words. I believed that if I just kept sacrificing, if I kept proving my value day after day, one day my parents would look at me and finally see a daughter, not just an unpaid employee. Then came the diagnosis. It started as a dull, constant ache in my lower spine, something I dismissed for months as simple muscle fatigue from working 80-hour weeks. But within 6 months, the pain became razor-sharp, firing down my legs like liquid fire until I could not stand without my knees buckling under me. The MRI revealed a severe spinal malformation that was actively threatening permanent paralysis. The specialist sat me down and said I needed an immediate, delicate 5-level fusion. The cost was astronomical. When I gently asked my father if the firm could help cover the out-of-pocket expenses, considering I had worked for 3 years without taking a real salary, he merely sighed, rubbing his temples with deep exasperation. He looked at me and said that timing was everything. He explained that they were putting together Chloe's massive engagement gala because she was marrying into the Vance family. He told me that connection meant everything for our social reputation, and that they could not liquidate funds right now. He told me to just use my basic health insurance and stop making things complicated. My insurance covered 60%. I was forced to drain my entire life savings, every single penny I had painstakingly saved since my teenage years, just to afford the deposit for the hospital room. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at St. Jude's Medical Center. The night before the operation, my family gathered at a luxury 5-star hotel down the road to celebrate Chloe's formal proposal announcement to Julian Vance, the heir to a massive regional logistics empire. My mother called me at 9 o'clock that evening while I was sitting alone in a sterile hospital room, a cold 4-needle already taped into the back of my hand. Over the phone, I could hear the background noise of clinking champagne flutes, loud laughter, and background music. She told me they would not be able to drop by before I went into surgery the next morning. She explained that Julian's parents had booked an early breakfast brunch for the families, and that it was crucial they made a good impression. She told me not to worry and to just text them when I was out of the recovery room. I sat on the edge of the narrow hospital bed, tears streaming down my face as I whispered into the receiver that it was a 7-hour operation, and that the doctor had warned there was a risk of permanent neural damage. My mother merely sighed and told me not to be so dramatic. She said I was in good hands and promised they would pop in over the weekend. They did not pop in over the weekend. When I woke up from the anesthesia, the pain was unimaginable. It felt as if someone had poured molten metal straight down my spinal column. Every micro-movement sent shockwaves of agony through my neck and shoulders. I lay there in the quiet room, staring up at the white ceiling tiles, waiting for the door to open. I waited for my mother to walk in with a warm smile. I waited for my father to hold my hand and tell me I was going to be okay. I waited for Chloe to bring a simple card. Day 1 passed in silence. Nothing. Day 2 arrived, bringing only a single text message from Chloe, asking if I was doing okay and mentioning how overwhelmed she was with venue hunting. Day 3 came and my father sent a group business email regarding office updates, copying my email address as if I were sitting at my desk working. By day 5, the emotional isolation had carved a hole in my chest that was far deeper and far more painful than the surgical incision in my back. I was completely, utterly alone in a room that smelled of antiseptic and forgotten promises. Or so I thought. On the 6th morning, a senior night nurse named Sarah came into my room to carefully change my surgical dressings. She was a warm, middle-aged woman with kind eyes who had been silently watching me suffer alone for days. As she carefully replaced the gauze, she casually remarked that my friend was extraordinarily polite. I paused, wincing from the movement, and asked her what friend she was talking about. Sarah smiled gently and explained that a gentleman had been coming by every single evening after visiting hours ended. She said he brought fresh white lilies for my bedside table, spoke to the head surgeon every night to check on my neurological responses, and sat quietly in the vinyl armchair until 2 in the morning. My heart stopped in my chest. I turned my head slowly, fighting through the stiffness in my neck, and asked her what he looked like. She described a tall man with dark hair, wearing a sharp suit, who looked exhausted but sat quietly watching over me while I slept, instructing the staff not to wake me because I desperately needed rest. I did not know anyone like that. My father and my brother-in-law-to-be were the only businessmen I knew, and neither of them cared whether I lived or died. I asked Sarah to check the hallway security logs, needing to see his face with my own eyes. 10 minutes later, Sarah returned carrying a digital tablet. She rewound the hallway footage from the previous night. The camera showed a tall man in a tailored navy coat walking down the quiet corridor at midnight. He stopped outside my door, adjusted a bouquet of flowers, and stepped softly inside. When the camera caught his side profile under the bright hallway lights, my breath hitched. It was Arthur Vance. He was not Julian, Chloe's arrogant fiancé. Arthur was Julian's estranged older brother. Arthur was known as the black sheep of the powerful Vance family. Years ago, he had walked away from his family's corrupt logistics business to build his own independent technology and supply chain firm. He was famous in the corporate world as an unyielding, brilliantly intelligent man who utterly despised phonies, pretenders, and corporate politics. I had met Arthur exactly once 2 years prior, at an industry conference where I had given a small presentation on digital logistics systems. He had asked 3 sharp questions, listened intently to my answers, and handed me his card, telling me that I was completely wasted working for my father. At the time, out of misplaced family loyalty, I had politely declined his offer. He had never forgotten me. That very evening at 11:30, the heavy door to my hospital room creaked open. I did not pretend to be asleep this time. I was sitting up, propped up by pillows, watching the entrance. Arthur walked in carrying a small thermal container of warm soup from a local bistro I loved. When his eyes met mine, he stopped in his tracks, caught off guard. He sat down in the vinyl armchair and looked at me with deep seriousness. He told me that 3 weeks prior, while reviewing prospective merger documents between his family's firm and my father's business, he had noticed something deeply wrong. He explained that all the intellectual property, the software code, and the client retention frameworks submitted by my father were actually registered exclusively under my personal name, not my father's or Chloe's. Arthur looked into my eyes and said he had assumed my family would pause merger talks to stand by my side during surgery. Instead, my father had pushed to sign the contracts early, specifically while I was unconscious under anesthesia, so he could claim full ownership of my life's work and use it as Chloe's marriage dowry. A cold, icy wash of reality poured over my soul. The physical pain in my spine faded completely compared to the absolute frost that settled into my chest. They had not just abandoned me. They had timed my major surgery so they could rob me blind while I was helpless. I asked Arthur why he had come to see me every night. He reached into his coat, pulled out a dark leather folder and said that talent and integrity were far too rare in this world. He told me he hated watching parasites destroy the person who built their home. He said he came to see if I was strong enough to take back what was mine. I looked at the folder and then I looked at Arthur. The naive, desperate girl who spent her whole life begging for her parents' love died right there in that hospital bed. In her place, someone cold, calculated, and sharp took her very first breath. For the next 2 weeks, while my family assumed I was at home quietly recovering and weeping over my fate, Arthur and I worked in absolute secrecy. My father had attempted to file an emergency legal clause while I was incapacitated, claiming I was mentally unfit to manage my professional assets. What he did not realize was that 2 days before my operation, anticipating that something might go wrong, I had officially transferred all my proprietary software and client databases into a private, independent holding company to which only I held the master encryption keys. My father had signed a multi-million-dollar contract with the Vance family, promising access to complex systems that he did not actually own. He had sold a mountain made of sand. The grand corporate launch party, where my father and Chloe intended to officially announce the merger and showcase their new automated logistics platform, was scheduled for a Friday night at the Grand Plaza Hotel. It was the exact same luxury hotel where they had celebrated Chloe's engagement while I was lying open on an operating table. Arthur arranged every single detail. He provided his top legal team his private security and his unwavering presence. When Friday evening arrived, the Grand Plaza ballroom was breathtaking. It was filled with high-profile investors, city officials, and dozens of journalists. My father stood on the raised stage wearing a custom tuxedo, beaming alongside my mother and Chloe, who was covered in expensive diamonds. Julian Vance stood beside them looking insufferably proud. My father stepped up to the microphone, his voice echoing through the massive speakers. He announced that they were ushering in a brand new era of success. He claimed that thanks to the brilliant leadership of his daughter Chloe, they were proud to present a revolutionary routing system that would change the industry forever. The crowd applauded loudly. Behind him, a massive 20-foot display screen lit up, preparing to show a live demonstration of the software. My father pressed the remote control in his hand. The screen blinked once, twice. But instead of the sleek corporate dashboard he expected, the display suddenly cut to a stark high-definition video feed. It was the ICU hallway security footage from St. Jude's Hospital. The timestamp in the top corner clearly displayed the exact date and time of my operation. The video showed the quiet, empty hallway, the lonely hospital room, and Arthur Vance walking in with flowers. Overlaid across the screen in bold text was the audio recording of my mother's phone call from that night. Her voice echoed through the ballroom, clearly saying that they could not drop by because Chloe's engagement brunch was far too important, telling me not to be so dramatic. Shocked gasps erupted across the room. My mother's face lost every single drop of color. My father froze on stage, his hand shaking violently as he frantically pressed buttons on the remote control, trying in vain to turn it off. Before the technical staff could pull the power plug, the video feed instantly transitioned to an official legal cease and desist declaration issued by the Federal District Court. That was my moment. The heavy double doors at the very back of the ballroom swung open. I walked into the room. I was not in a wheelchair. I was not stooped over. Thanks to a successful operation and relentless physical therapy, I stood completely straight, dressed in a sharp emerald green suit that commanded attention. Walking directly beside me was Arthur Vance. The crowded room parted like the sea. Microphones and cameras immediately swung in our direction. I walked straight down the center aisle, stepped onto the side of the stage and took the backup microphone from the podium. My voice resonated through the ballroom, steady, calm, and completely unbothered. I told the audience that my father had forgotten to mention one minor detail in his grand speech. I announced that the software he was attempting to demonstrate did not belong to his firm, but was registered exclusively to my company. I turned my head and looked my father directly in the eyes. He looked as though he were having a medical emergency, sweating profusely, staring at me as if he were looking at a ghost returned from the grave. I continued, telling the crowd that an immediate federal injunction had been served just 10 minutes prior, and that any attempt by my father or Julian Vance's family to sell or commercialize my property would result in immediate criminal prosecution. My mother shrieked from the side of the stage, her voice breaking in front of dozens of rolling cameras. She screamed at me, asking how I could be so selfish and demanding to know why I was trying to ruin my sister's life. I did not lose my temper. I did not raise my voice. I simply looked at her with pure, cold indifference. I asked her if she truly thought I was being selfish. I reminded her that she had left me alone in an intensive care unit with a severed back just so she could sip champagne. I told her that I was not being selfish, but was simply taking back what belonged to me. Arthur stepped up to the second microphone and announced that as the majority shareholder of Vance Enterprises, he was officially canceling the proposed merger due to corporate fraud. The entire ballroom erupted into absolute chaos. Reporters rushed forward with flashing cameras. Wealthy investors stormed out of the hall, pulling out their phones to cancel their business contracts. Julian Vance turned on Chloe in a rage, furious that her family had ruined his reputation, throwing his engagement ring onto the floor before walking away into the crowd. My father sank slowly into a chair on stage, watching his entire legacy collapse into dust in real time. I turned around, adjusted my jacket, and walked out of the ballroom with my head held high. I did not look back even once. Within 3 months, my father's firm officially filed for total bankruptcy. Chloe's engagement was permanently called off, and my parents were forced to sell their family home to pay off their mountain of legal debts and angry creditors. Today, my company operates in full partnership with Arthur's firm. For the very first time in my life, I am surrounded by people who value my mind, respect my boundaries, and stand by my side when things get difficult. Blood makes you related, but loyalty, respect, and real love are the only things that make you family. Never let people who ignore your presence make you feel guilty for choosing your own peace. If seeing justice served gave you chills today, please do me a quick favor and smash that like button right now. Drop a comment down below and tell me your thoughts. What would you have done if you were placed in my exact shoes? Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on all notification bells so you never miss another deeply satisfying story of Payback. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, stay strong.